In that background, we in CII obviously have multiple responsibilities. And we decided that we will have this as the focus for our annual regional meeting and the public event. What he sees as the future of how we in the country should be looking at the economic climate and the future of our planet and, so to say, preparation. Equally important is actually meeting reality, especially on the governance side. And that's where I think that have a clear plan or clear idea as to how the future of governance is going to be in this disruptive era. You are going to hear other speakers talk about their views on how this disruption is going to be faced by us, is going to be surmounted by us, and if I can say so, from all of us in the South, seized upon as an opportunity to enable us grow and not just be successful, but also become, so to say, the forebringers of change and growth happening. I do not want to take up more of your time. I think we are here to hear all these expert gentlemen, if I can say so, tell us how we should be prepared for. I'm sure all of us will have a good session, and I would like to once again welcome all of you here. And
dignitaries, press, welcome and good morning to everyone. So I was trying to figure out what to say. Factory, and we had a marketing department, but actually it was an allocation department. That was 40 years ago. Things have changed now, and it's the total, one of the largest number of players. Mr. Damodran is there in the aviation business and probably the most. For me, staying ahead of the curve, like I said, staying on the curve. And my philosophy, whatever I've learned over the years on staying on the curve and through a lot of my past mistakes, is you're off the curve. You can add in the current scenario the environment. Factory guy, if tools break, if power goes off, and all kinds of things. So risk management in the most intense way, and risk mitigation in the most creative and detailed manner is what is helping people move ahead of the curve. Process control, a healthy balance sheet, and of course contribution to society is one of the other major requirements to start getting ahead of the curve. When you talk going truly ahead or leapfrogging a curve, I think it's where phenomenal amount of innovations come out. And it's not often that you see these big innovations. In Apple, I've been using Apple products for a long time, everything. And once you get used to Apple, it's hard to use anything else. But when the iPod came out, that was one of the most phenomenal innovations. And I think it's still the biggest innovation that changed Apple. When I look at Toyota Motor, in 98, we got the hybrids in. And about 2-3 years later, Mr. Cho was the president, said, make a plan for 1 million hybrids production. And everyone in the company said, no, we can't sell more than 10,000. And he got very angry, he said, no, we make it for 1 million. Actually, that changed Toyota. If Toyota did not make hybrids, I don't think it would have been a company that it is today. So the next big phase is innovation. Very hard to say how does one innovate. You need, of course, the basics in you. You need a process orientation and then a very creative mind. You need to understand what the market wants, what's reality and what is perception. Hopefully you can convert the perception into reality and stay ahead. Thank you very much for inviting me, Dinesh, and I hope you have a productive session this morning.
Dr. Krishnan, I'm extremely happy to note the theme India is 75, building an inclusive agenda in the disruptive world, which will not only highlight our transformation journey towards the 75th year of its independence in 2022, but also more importantly decide India as one of the big boys on the global platform. And I think that is the key. And that, I believe, is the journey which the Indian industry also need to traverse as partners of the government at the national level and governments at the state level. My compliments to CII team of Southern Region led by Dinesh, who have contributed immensely to the vision and business agenda of CII, also making it the first port of call with various state governments. And this is something which I'm very, very proud of. The CII is at a position being a leading industry body, industry chamber, but I think more importantly how the governments and various ministries come and partner with CII, seeking our inputs and suggestions, and hence gets into policy interventions, policy advocacy, and we see final policy outcomes which help the industry in growing the economic growth. The CII vision was developed by C.K. Prahlad, India at 75. I remember CII has been pushing this agenda for a long time. And the national theme was, for the year, was India Rise. Responsible, inclusive, sustainable and unlimited. And at few international meetings, including I think some of the meetings which I had with some of the stakeholders in India, so they actually questioned me, you are writing India Rise. Is this the apt theme? I said, actually, you don't know India has already risen. RISE is only an acronym for the 4 focus areas of CII. And I think this is where India has moved in the last 2.5 decades. Today, India sits on the high table globally on policy making. I think after the non-aligned movement, we have been followers on policy initiatives at the global level. Today, we sit on the high table. We sit on the high table on conflict and resolutions across the world. And I think clearly India is getting its due respect. And we are marching ahead, and we will be amongst the top 3 economies in the world by 2030, 2035, given whatever the growth rates will be annually. One of the agenda CII has been pushing, and this year has been the focus, was on inclusive growth. I think this is something we keep hearing from the polity across the country. But I sincerely believe, and I'm convinced, we just cannot have islands of wealth or islands of happiness. You cannot be happy if there is turmoil around you. And therefore, the CII membership came forward when the CSR was put in place to spend 2%. And a large number of companies are partaking and contributing to the $2 billion CSR contributions every year. And I think that is also making it, if I may say, CII to stand apart, and its members, who are not only looking at being just a good corporate business citizen, but in totality a corporate citizen to look at inclusive growth within the country. Let me mention a few priority areas. I think one of the first things which comes to our mind, and we are struggling with, is participation of youth. And participation of youth in productive initiatives, in productive areas, partaking in the economic growth of the country. And how do we bring about that? 8 to 10 million young boys and girls are joining the workforce every year. And therefore, it is imperative, not only for the governments, not only for the academic institutions, but equally the industry, to make them employable. And I think the one program which the government started in schools under the Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, RMSA, to set up vocational training centers in schools, providing vocational training in class 9, 10, 11, 12, module 1 and module 2. And the idea is to make the child employable after class 12. Given our population, 1.3 billion, 1.32 billion, you can't have everyone an engineer, a doctor, or a scientist. So we need many more skills. The good thing is that today the children, even in the rural areas where we are running our education initiatives, they actually come and tell me, don't give us vocational training on carpentry, electrician, and stuff, jobs. talk to us about financial services, fintech, retail, telecom. I think the aspirations are going through the roof. And therefore, it is important that industry now starts having a true partnership with the academia. I think we have a few members from the academia here as well. So I must reinforce my point which I have been pushing through the year. We have to step back as academic institution, just seeking support from the industry on summer training programs or come for annual hiring recruitments. Similarly, on the industry side, we just don't need to look at these two or give some funding on research. On R&D today, we are amongst the lowest spenders globally, even within the emerging markets. I think the time has come when industry academia needs to sit on the table to talk about tweaking the curriculum, talk about investing in research and development. And I can assure you industry will be very happy to put money on the table as long as the academic institutions show them transparently where every rupee is being spent. The problem with academia is give us the money and forget about it what we do. I don't think anyone is ready to do it. So all in all, what I'm trying to say here is that so far in India we have been talking about jobs and future. I think we need to move to future of jobs. The world has moved. My engineering student in India, my medical student in India, when they finish their graduation or post-graduation, the world has moved. There's technology disruption every 5 years. So therefore, we need to talk about future technologies, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, machine learning, robotics, augmented virtual reality. And this can only come through a strong partnership between industry and academia. So I think that's one priority which I wanted to leave. The second biggest priority is on agriculture, the farm sector, the farm stress we see, and this happens every few months, every few years. We need to come out with permanent solutions rather than looking at patchy solutions for the time being. And I believe farm sector, the farmers need tremendous support from the government. But that support shouldn't be only through subsidies. We can augment the infrastructure, agri-infrastructure. We can augment the underground water table, which is depleting at an alarming rate. We can bring in online transactions through the eNAM, Electronic National Agri Market, which have been put on. And I think more importantly, when we are looking at the eating habits of young India changing, I mean, many of you will agree with me, and the youngsters will positively who are sitting here. I mean, half the month it's a food carry out, you don't want to cook, just eat home cooked food. So the preferences are changing. So food processing is one big area. Agri-business and agri-entrepreneurship is another area. There are new models which are being thrown up. There are now shared mechanized services being provided by entrepreneurs, where they hire or buy the equipment, agri-equipment, and lease out to the farmers, because they don't have money to buy, and therefore our productivity suffers. One of the, actually two very strong recommendations which CII has made, and I have personally met the Honorable Prime Minister on this. One goes on the leasing of agricultural land to the private sector, including the large farmers who do today leasing but under the table, unethical ways of doing it. And once you start seeing large farms, you'll start seeing more mechanization happening, more drip irrigation, new technologies, new hybrid seeds. And by the way, that also ensures that thousands of farmers around that, if I may say, the model farm or the agriculture center of excellence, starts getting benefited because they start growing high value crop and don't have to worry about market. And the lease money today can actually be 40% upwards of the farmer's income which they earn every acre in a year today. The second strong recommendation which we have made, and NITI Aayog has already made their recommendations, is to use solar as a third crop for the farmer. And let me just take a minute because I think it's extremely important. Today, most of the state governments, and especially the agrarian states, are giving about 8,000 crore of rupees as power-free subsidy, which is $1 billion plus every year. In spite of that, the farmer is not happy because the power is available at night and not during the day when he is supposed to work. So one of the initiatives which the governments have started thinking of subsidizing solar pumps. The problem is the solar pump will have a life, if not stolen, or the panel will get stolen and the farmer will be back on your doorstep. So the recommendation which we have made is that if you allow the consolidation of land for putting solar farms, which will come at a 14 feet high, farmer gets about 40,000 rupees per acre per year on the land lease, which is half of what they are earning today, 80,000. So that's a third crop which becomes income for the farmer. And by the way, the farming family continues to do agriculture underneath, so it's not that they've lost their agribusiness. Three big benefits. The private sector puts the money on the solar farm, the farmer doesn't have it, the governments don't have to fund this. The farmer gets subsidized power during the day, which makes the crop better productive and better quality. The government save $1 million plus of power subsidy. And the additional subsidy which they want to give on solar farms. So it's a permanent solution which we have recommended. And I hope more and more state governments push this. And since Dr. Subramanian is here, I think this is one thing which I would leave it for you to ensure that we can move this forward. Investment opportunities are huge across the country. I mean, you talk of agri-sector, agri-business, food processing, manufacturing, infrastructure. I think these are the areas I don't have to sort of spell out. Everyone of us know that we have that opportunity. What we need to see is how can we move up the consumption? How can we look at the liquidity crunch issue getting resolved at the earliest, so that the SMEs get their credit, which they fail to get from the banks, and the small borrowers who lean very heavily on the NBFCs. So I think there is another area which I believe post the election there will be one big agenda for the government to ensure that this starts moving forward. In conclusion, I can only say that while Southern Region has taken many more initiatives, CII has done that through the year, and through the centers of excellence, we provide outstanding services to the CII membership and others, be it on quality, be it on competitiveness, be it on green buildings. In fact, India has the largest number of green buildings outside US in the world. And today, CII is engaging with the state government to make their existing buildings green. We have entered into an agreement with Punjab and Haryana to ensure that some of their buildings we do it as a pilot and then take it forward. And I think these are the things which CII does beyond policy advocacy, beyond raising industry issues. And I think more importantly, how can we look at bridging the gap between small, medium enterprise and the big enterprises? How can we bring the Indian businesses on international forums and bring them into large companies globally to partner within India, outside? And I think more importantly, CII's role as nation building. I think that is something extremely important, and I'm sure we will not only continue doing that agenda, but we will walk hand in hand and partner with the governments in India to ensure that India finds its place under the sun. Thank you very much.
And I understand maybe it is the first time he is here in the South to address us, even though I think all of us have known him as being somebody who is, so to say, very favorably inclined to the South, if I can say so. If I can now request you to give your special address, sir. Thank you.
Program for today that I have been referred to as Chairman Interglobe Aviation Limited. In a reasonably long life of close to 72 years, I have occupied this position of part-time, non-executive director of the airline for around 8 weeks. But since it is that assignment perhaps which of course has reduced everything else that I might have done or not done to near irrelevance, I initially entertained thoughts of taking off and painting on a larger canvas, which is the governance of India, but I have been brought to earth and told that while you might choose to spend a few minutes talking about larger issues on how nations ought to be governed, and I'm not taking political positions, while I've understood political science, I haven't understood politics all these years. But perhaps to share a few thoughts before I legitimize Dinesh's request by sharing a few thoughts on governance in the corporate space. But let me start by telling you what I saw this morning. Just before I got out of my room, I switched on television. It's a good habit, I assure you, to do that once in a while. Many of us pretend that we don't see television even though we spend several hours before it. And I saw 6 first-time voters, college students, being interviewed. What they said was not important. What I liked was the fact that they were all asked to name one issue that they thought was important, not in the context of the 2019 elections, but where India is placed today. And 6 of them came up with 6 different issues, all of which I thought were equally important. And that gives me great hope. Of course, they say about economists that if you ask 5 of them, you'll get 6 opinions. Here you got 6 of them and 6 opinions. Right? That is something that enthused me. You see, I grew up at a time many of you did. I can see some people even older than me, and therefore I must be a little circumspect in what I say. But I grew up at a time when disruption was a bad word. If you were found to be disruptive, either your parents ticked you off or your teachers ticked you off or somebody else ticked you off. It was not the best thing to do. Today, disruption is a badge of honor, it's a badge of courage, it is what sets the men apart from the boys. If I may make a gender non-neutral observation, because the women in any case all belong at the highest levels. The men have to qualify so. This sets the men apart from the boys. I think the opportunity that disruption presents is better, higher, and travels further than the opportunity that a peaceful life presents. It doesn't challenge you. Disruption challenges you much more. Because to survive, you have to struggle. And if you struggle and you survive, then you prosper. If you believe that business can be done or life can be carried on in the manner that you did yesterday and the day before, I think a rethink is in order. The world has changed and is changing every day. That's not something new I'm saying. Because once upon a time, Apple and BlackBerry were fruits. Some of you remember that. Today, Apple we see sometimes, BlackBerries I think less often. Both in the telephone industry as well as on the dining table. BlackBerry has ceased to be less important. The Apple has occupied center stage. But things have moved on. What is significant is the fact that young India and youth is defined by its singular quality of impatience. What sets youth apart from the rest of us is impatience. Riding on impatience, there is an irreverence. We were reverential when we ought to have been merely respectful. They are neither reverential nor respectful. They ask tough questions in a no-holds-barred fashion because they are such answers. If we had the right questions in our mind, we didn't ask them at that time. We kept it to ourselves because we thought we might offend somebody. That's not the case any longer. They also bring to the table a combination of energy, enthusiasm, excitement. And this is a heady cocktail. It either explodes into something positive or into something dangerously negative. And for those of us who are slightly older, and I say slightly, somewhat optimistically, for those of us who are not young any longer, let me put it that way, there is the responsibility to ensure that this great energy that there is in this nation, more than in most other nations because of our population profile, what we call our demographic dividend, we want to put this to great use. Now, why is disruption taking place? It is because people are questioning the way things were done earlier. You've got to do newer things to do today, you have to do things better today, you've got to do things faster today, you've got to do things that are completely different from what you did earlier. No longer will this country tolerate what we've tolerated for years, for decades, which is incrementalism. You have to move away from incremental change to fundamental change. And that is something that industry must set an example for. We don't have to be at the high table. The question is that having got to the high table, heterogeneous, with multiple divides, starting from economic divides to digital divides, you should recognize that in an age of disruption, you're fighting a war. I know I'm a pacifist, but I think